She's asked you not to come, Adam. Let it go. Louise's voice was calm, like always, but her hands trembled slightly as she placed the envelope on my table. I didn't respond. My eyes stayed fixed on the name etched in gold on the ivory card in front of me. You are warmly invited to the union of Rosemary and John. Below that, in handwriting I knew better than my own, was a final plea. Please don't make a scene, just act normal. Act normal. I had been acting normal for the past 7 months, when she vanished from our apartment without a word, when she blocked my number, when she went public with John 2 weeks later. I acted normal when she told the world she was expecting, and even when she posted the sonogram with the caption, "The best surprise of my life, thank you, John." But this was not going to be normal. I picked up the envelope Louise had left. It was heavy with proof. Clean, clinical, final. Is it conclusive? I asked, my voice even. Louise hesitated. Adam, are you sure you want to bring this to her wedding? I nodded. It's not her wedding I'm ruining, it's her story. Louise swallowed hard. Yes, it's conclusive, 99.9% match, the child is yours. I closed my eyes. I had suspected it. The dates didn't lie, neither did the way Rosemary clutched her stomach the last time we fought and said, "Whatever happens, I'll handle it." She handled it by erasing me. The air in the room thickened as I stood, smoothing the cuffs of my black shirt. My suit had been pressed and ready for months, for a different wedding. Ours, one she said she wanted, was small, private, just us and a few close friends, one she never showed up for. Back then, I'd waited 2 hours in the rain. Now, I was done waiting. I turned to Louise. Will you come? Her lips parted slightly in surprise. You're asking me to stand beside you as you blow up her entire life. I nodded once. You're the only one who knows the truth besides me, and besides, she trusts you. Louise gave a dry laugh. She used to. I want this done right, I said, tucking the envelope into the inside pocket of my jacket. No screaming, no scene, no violence, just the truth. Louise looked at me carefully, the way she did when we were children in foster care, when someone had a secret too big for their own chest. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a second envelope. This is the hospital's certified copy, just in case they try to say you faked it. I took it. Thanks. She crossed her arms. You're still in love with her, aren't you? No, I said quickly. Too quickly. Then I corrected myself. Not with her, just with the version of her that never existed. We arrived at the venue 10 minutes before the ceremony, a lavish garden, petals scattered along the aisle, a string quartet playing something gentle and romantic. Everything smelled like money and lies. People glanced at me but didn't recognize me, not yet. John stood near the altar in a cream tuxedo, checking his watch. He looked nervous. Good. Then Rosemary appeared. I hadn't seen her in months. She looked beautiful, cruel, but beautiful. Her gown was slim and ivory, her lips were red, her eyes scanned the guests, and froze. Her smile faltered, she blinked hard, then she turned to whisper something to the wedding planner beside her. Louise leaned over. She didn't expect you to come. I smiled without humor. She should have. The music changed, the officiant took his place. Guests settled, phones silenced, cameras clicked softly. And I stood there, second row from the front, the envelope tucked against my chest like a loaded gun. Act normal. That's what she wanted. I would act exactly like the father of the child she tried to give to another man. My name is Adam Hayes, 31, mechanical engineer by training, quiet by nature, loyal to the wrong people by mistake. If you asked anyone who knows me well, they'd probably say I don't talk much, that I keep my head down and get the job done, that I don't chase drama. But I used to chase her, Rosemary. She wasn't the kind of girl you just met, she was the kind you remembered forever, even if all you got was one conversation and a flash of her smile. We met during freshman orientation in university. I was the guy carrying 2 bags and a broken laptop. She was the girl arguing with the housing office about getting her own room because she didn't do well with strangers. Somehow, we both got assigned to the same floor. She looked at me and said, "You look like you won't talk too much, that's perfect." That's how it started. She was loud, sarcastic, moody, and brilliant. She wanted to be a surgeon. Said her dream was to fix people with her hands because words couldn't always reach deep enough. She studied like the world was ending. I admire that about her. I was always good at building things, machines, prosthetics, little circuits and code. But Rosemary? She built silence into the sanctuary. She made cold spaces feel like home. We weren't instant lovers, no sparks, no candlelit confessions. We were partners in survival. She stitched my torn jacket once with thread from her sewing kit. I brought her tea the night before her exam and sat across the room while she studied. For 2 years, that's all it was. Then, in our final semester, she kissed me during a power outage, no build-up, no warning, just leaned over, pressed her lips to mine, and whispered, "This isn't a mistake, okay?" It wasn't. We moved in together 6 months after graduation, a small apartment near downtown, cheap rent, thin walls, but we made it work. I fixed things, she cooked when she had time, and every Sunday, we watched bad movies while folded together on our tiny couch like overgrown origami. I used to think we were the same kind of broken. She didn't talk about her family much. I had no family to talk about. I grew up in a foster home with too many beds and too few blankets. She came from something colder, expectations, appearances, reputation. Her parents wanted her to marry rich, settle down, and forget anything that didn't fit their dinner party narrative. She never said she loved me in front of them, but I didn't care. I thought I could wait. She would stand in the bathroom, brushing her hair, and I'd watch her in the mirror. She'd glance back and say, "Don't look at me like that. You make it harder to pretend we're just temporary." That's how she said I love you, with eyes, with touch, with presence, not with words. And I accepted that. When Rosemary found out she was pregnant, she didn't smile right away. She sat on the edge of the tub, holding the stick like it was a grenade. I knelt in front of her, my fingers resting on her knee, and I whispered, "We're going to be okay." She didn't say anything, just nodded once, and laid her head on my shoulder. That night, she cried in her sleep. I told myself it was just fear. I was afraid too. I didn't have money saved. My job at the design firm barely covered rent. But I started working overtime. I picked up freelance projects. I even drove for rideshare apps at night. Anything to prove to her she wasn't alone. At our 12-week scan, she squeezed my hand so tight it turned purple. When we heard the heartbeat, she looked at me for the first time in weeks. I saw something warm flash across her face. Hope. We were going to be a family. That was the last time she looked at me like that. One night, I came home late, and she was gone. No fight, no goodbye, just gone. Half her clothes were missing. The ultrasound photos were off the fridge. Our photo albums were untouched. No note, no explanation. I searched hospitals. I called her friends. I called Louise. Louise was our mutual friend from med school. She was quiet, the bookish type, always standing just behind Rosemary like a shadow that never left. She used to call me the mechanic, jokingly. She liked to say Rosemary needed a calm man to balance her hurricane soul. When I called Louise the night Rosemary left, she sounded stiff, cold. "She's safe," she said. "She just needs space." "Space from what?" I asked. "From everything," she replied, and hung up. Days turned into weeks. Then a notification popped up on my phone. "John Rosemary are expecting." A social media post with pastel pink balloons, a cake, and Rosemary's arms wrapped around John's waist. John was her ex, wealthy, respected, charming. He was the man her parents approved of. The man she broke up with before she ever kissed me. The caption read, "We're so excited to welcome this miracle into our lives, couldn't ask for a better partner." I read it 3 times before I threw the phone across the room. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat for 2 days. I deleted every photo of us, but I kept the ultrasound image, folded it, taped it to the inside of my wallet. I couldn't bear to throw it out. People told me to move on. I tried, I really did. But I kept wondering, was the baby mine? I counted weeks, checked calendars, did the math 10 different ways. All signs pointed to me. But she never reached out, never sent a message. Until the invitation. Until the words, "Please don't ruin my wedding, just act normal." Normal. What is normal when someone steals the life you built? What is normal when you see the woman you loved smiling for cameras beside a man who took everything from you? What is normal when you're expected to clap as your child is handed to another man? Louise showed up at my doorstep a week before the wedding. She didn't smile, she just handed me a sealed envelope and said, she had a blood test done at the hospital, she used my login, I ran a match behind the scenes, you have the right to know. I stared at her. She's your friend, I said. Why would you do this? Louise looked down, because she crossed a line, and because you never did. That's who I am. Adam Hayes. A man who never crossed the line. Until now. Because if Rosemary wanted normal, then maybe normal meant standing quietly while she kissed the wrong man. Or maybe normal was standing silently at the altar with a sealed truth in my pocket, one she tried to erase. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because Rosemary had left her planner open on the kitchen table. She always used green ink for work shifts, blue for appointments, and red for anything personal. That day, 3 items were circled in red: lunch with John, prenatal checkup, and call Louise. I stared at it for 10 minutes. We hadn't spoken about John in months. Last I heard, they'd parted ways for good. He was a footnote, a closed chapter. Rosemary used to joke about how stiff he was, how he'd never survive a movie night with us or understand her obsession with ramen at midnight. So why was he back, and why was she meeting him without telling me? When she came home that night, I was quiet, not cold, just cautious. She noticed. Rosemary always noticed. Is everything okay? She asked, while kicking off her shoes. Did you have a good lunch? I asked, without looking up from the sink. There was a pause. Yeah, why? With John? Another pause. Longer this time. Then, he just wanted to check on me, that's all. I turned to face her. Didn't you say he made you feel like you weren't enough? He's changed, she said. He's softer now, less guarded. And what are you? I asked carefully. Still engaged to me, or something softer too? Her eyes flashed. Don't do that. Then don't hide things. I wasn't hiding. You didn't tell me. Because I knew you'd react like this. I didn't raise my voice, I never do. That was what scared her more. My quiet always hit harder than any shouting match. I'm carrying your child, she snapped, crossing her arms. Then why does it feel like you're already walking out of this home? I asked. She didn't answer. That night, she slept on the couch. 3 days later, she said she needed space to breathe, claimed the walls were closing in, said the pregnancy hormones were making her irrational. She moved into Louise's apartment temporarily. Or so I thought. For 2 weeks, I checked my phone every hour, texted her once, "Do you need anything?" No reply, called twice, straight to voicemail. I stopped calling after that. I didn't want to be the desperate man. I wanted to be trusted again. But the trust was already gone. Then came the gender reveal. I wasn't invited. No explanation. Just a perfectly curated Instagram post. Rosemary in a flowing white dress, standing under a pink balloon arch. John beside her, smiling like he'd won something. A cake split open, revealing strawberry filling. It's a girl. Rosemary was owing. But not from pregnancy. She looked untouched, like she had erased the last 3 years with me and started from a blank slate. I watched the video a dozen times, zoomed in on her hands, her necklace, her shoes, looking for something, anything that proved it was still real, that I hadn't imagined her whispering, "You're the only place I've ever felt safe." But there was nothing left of me in her eyes. When I called Louise, her voice was tight. "Adam, please don't start this." "Start what?" I asked. "Start wondering why the man who left her is suddenly back and raising a child that may not be his?" "She's doing what's best for the baby." "No," I said. "She's doing what's best for her image." Silence. Then, Louise sighed. "I'm sorry. I didn't want this either." She hung up, and I broke down. I had spent the last few months building a crib, researching baby names, printing out budget sheets. I had kept the receipt for every prenatal vitamin, every maternity pillow. I bought a car seat with my bonus check. Now another man would be installing it in his car. John. The irony, he had never wanted kids. That's what Rosemary told me when we first got serious. She said, John wanted perfection, not diapers and stretch marks. She said I made her feel loved even when she was at her worst. So what changed? Money? Pressure? Or had I just never really known her? I started to spiral. I checked her social media every morning, watched her mom-to-be videos. She had rebranded overnight, Rosemary the caregiver, the calm, graceful fiancée to John the successful entrepreneur. Gone were the messy nights on the couch. Gone was the chipped mug I fixed for her. Gone was the girl who cried in my arms after failing her first surgery rotation. She became someone curated, scripted, filtered. Then the invitation came. I remember the mailman hesitating when he handed it to me, as if he could sense the heat radiating off the envelope. Thick ivory stock, a gold wax seal, my name written in her calligraphy, Adam. I opened it and read it twice. Not because it was beautiful, because it was disgusting. You are warmly invited to the wedding of Rosemary E. Langston and John Samuel Harrington III. My hand clenched the card so hard the edges bent. I turned it over. There it was. Her handwriting again. Please don't ruin my wedding. Just act normal. For once. For once? I gave her my home, my heart, and likely my child, and she asked me to act normal? I didn't scream, didn't throw anything. I simply placed the card on my desk and pulled out my calendar. Wedding day, 2 weeks from now. Which meant I had 13 days to prove what I already suspected. I reached out to Louise, told her I needed one answer. I didn't care about Rosemary's choices anymore, I cared about the truth. About the little life caught in the middle. Louise was hesitant. If I help you, Adam, there's no going back, you'll lose her forever. I laughed bitterly. She's already gone. 2 days later, Louise handed me the test. The paternity results were sealed in a plain white envelope, clean, official. She said, "It matches, the baby is yours." I nodded, my hands didn't shake, my breath didn't hitch. I just said, "Then I'll be attending the wedding." She looked at me in shock. "You're going to expose her at the altar?" "No," I replied. "I'm going to give her what she asked for." "What's that?" "To act normal." I woke up the morning of the wedding feeling like I hadn't slept at all. The room was quiet, but inside my chest, everything throbbed, my heart, my mind, my ribs, the kind of pain that has no name. It wasn't anger, it wasn't even sadness anymore. It was hollow, clean, cold, calculated. The ache of knowing what someone is capable of after they've already walked away. I sat at the edge of my bed, looking at the neatly folded suit lying across the chair. I had bought it for my own wedding to Rosemary. It was meant to be worn while watching her walk toward me, not away from me. Instead, I would be wearing it as a stranger in her audience. The irony would have been poetic if it hadn't been my reality. I ran my thumb over the envelope in my lap, the one that held the paternity results. It was heavier than it should have been, not because of the paper, but because of everything it meant, everything it confirmed. She had lied. She had stripped my name from our daughter's story before I even got to meet her. And now she wanted me to show up, sit down, and smile while she handed that child to another man. I didn't know which part broke me more, the betrayal or her certainty that I'd just accept it. Did she really think I was that weak? Or had I been so soft with her that she forgot I had limits? Louise texted me at 9:32 a.m. "Louise, you sure you want to go through with this?" Me. "Yes." Louise. "No hesitation?" Me. "Only regret is that it's come to this." Louise. "Then I'll be outside your apartment in 10. I got dressed in silence, no music, no coffee, just the sound of my breath echoing off the walls of the life I used to share with her. The suit fit a little tighter now. I had lost weight these past few months. Grief will do that, so will betrayal. Every button felt like it was closing off a part of me. By the time I reached the last one, I wasn't Adam anymore. I was just the man with the truth. As we drove, I stared out the window. The city looked too bright, too clean. Everyone outside seemed to be moving with purpose, laughing, shopping, living. I was going to war in a suit. "You don't have to say anything if you don't want to," Louise said, keeping her eyes on the road. "I'm not going to shout, I'm not going to make a speech, I'm just going to hand her the truth. Louise exhaled slowly. She's going to hate you. She already does, I said. She just calls it closure. Silence again. Then, you still love her? I didn't answer. Because I did. And I hated that. I hated that even now, even after everything, I still remembered how she looked when she was sleepy and apologetic. I still remembered the way she used to cling to me during thunderstorms, muttering that silence scared her more than lightning ever could. I remembered every "I'm trying," she whispered when we fought. But most of all, I remembered believing her. That was the part I couldn't forgive, not her leaving, not the lies, but the fact that I believed her. That I trusted she would never let our child grow up calling another man Dad. When we arrived at the venue, I froze for a moment before stepping out. It was a garden, perfect soft lighting, blush pink decorations, long tables wrapped in ivory and gold ribbons, like something out of a bridal magazine. It was the kind of wedding Rosemary used to scoff at. Too fake, she once said. I want something real, something just ours. But there was nothing real about this. I kept my head down as I walked past the guests. No one looked at me. I liked it that way. I sat near the back, just far enough not to be noticed, close enough to act when I needed to. I could see John up front, checking his cufflinks like the world owed him punctuality. Then I saw her. Rosemary. She stepped onto the aisle like she'd been carved out of light. Her gown was soft, flowing, pearl-stitched. She looked like everything I used to dream of. But her eyes avoided the crowd. She didn't look left or right. She was focused only on him. And for a moment, a horrible, traitorous moment, I wanted her to be happy. I wanted to walk out and never let her know I was there. Because part of me still loved her enough to want her peace, even if it didn't include me. But then I looked down at the envelope in my lap. And I remembered the child. My child. The one whose life was about to be rewritten in front of me. And I knew I couldn't let that happen. I wasn't doing this out of vengeance. I wasn't trying to ruin her day. I was protecting a truth that had been denied a name. When the officiant said, "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace," the air shifted. No one moved, not a whisper. Except Louise, who turned to me with a slight nod. I stood. People turned, confused, curious. Even Rosemary. Her eyes locked on mine. Wide, pale, terrified. She knew. She always knew this moment might come. But she hoped I wouldn't have the strength. I walked down the aisle slowly, the envelope in my hand. Not shaking, not dramatic, just precise, just honest. And as I approached her, I whispered the only thing I could. "I'm not here to take you back. I'm here to make sure my daughter knows her father never walked away." And I held out the envelope. Her hands didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there, face drained of color, while the weight of truth settled between us. The envelope hung in the air between us like a blade. Rosemary's hands didn't move. Her lips parted slightly, as if trying to shape a denial, but nothing came. Not yet, just silence, an entire garden holding its breath. Then John stepped forward. "What the hell is this?" he asked, his voice a forced whisper that still cut through the hush. He was trying to keep the image together, still smiling slightly, still holding Rosemary's hand like it hadn't just gone limp in his grasp. I didn't look at him, my eyes never left her. "Open it," I said to her gently, "or I will." The officiant stepped back, a few camera phones lowered. The guests looked around, unsure if they were witnessing a breakdown or a planned surprise. Someone even laughed nervously. Rosemary finally reached out, her fingers trembling as they touched the paper. She held the envelope like it was coated in acid, and as she tore the seal and slid the document out, her face collapsed, visibly, fully. One blink at the top line, and her knees nearly buckled. Paternity analysis, probability of paternity, 99.9987%. John snatched it from her, eyes darting down the page like a man trying to reverse a car going over a cliff. He read it once, then again, then his lips curled into something sharp. "You lied to me," he whispered, more humiliated than angry. "You told me the dates didn't match." "They didn't," Rosemary croaked, finally finding her voice. "I thought, John, I thought it might be yours." I stepped back a little, not because I was afraid, but because this moment wasn't mine anymore. This was the fallout she had created. John turned slowly toward me. So what? You came here to ruin her life? No, I replied evenly. I came here to stop you from rewriting mine. He looked like he wanted to hit me, maybe he even needed to, but he didn't. He turned to Rosemary instead, eyes burning. You let me build a nursery, he said quietly. You let me pick out names. I signed up to be her father. I told my parents I was finally ready for a family. And all this time, his voice broke. All this time it was his kid? She couldn't meet his A's. I didn't know, she whispered. Yes, I said. You did. She looked at me then, and something inside her shattered. Not because I was wrong, but because I was right, and she had no more lies left to throw at me. Louise appeared beside me, placing her hand gently on my arm. She didn't speak. Her eyes were fixed on Rosemary. Then, from behind the crowd, a woman shouted, "Is this real?" Another murmured, "What kind of woman lies about that?" Then a louder voice from the right, "She tricked both of them?" The guests began to stir, some backing away, others whispering. The picture-perfect wedding was unraveling, and Rosemary, the once curated bride, was being stripped down to her rawest truth, in front of everyone. John finally dropped the paper and stepped away from her. "I should have known," he said. "You were always good at making people feel like they were second choice, but this..." He shook his head, then he turned and walked away. Just like that. No screaming, no ceremony. He left her standing at the altar, bouquet still in her hand, trembling. Rosemary turned to me. "Adam, I didn't say anything, because what could I say? That I forgave her? That I understood, that I would raise our child with her? No, not now. That part of me, the one who waited outside bathrooms with water bottles, the one who watched bad sci-fi just because she liked it, that version of me had died months ago. I didn't come to ruin you," I told her softly. "I came so that one day, when my daughter asks who her father is, she won't have to learn it from a blood test she ordered behind your back." Rosemary blinked fast. "So, that's it?" "You asked me to act normal," I said, "and normal men don't disappear on their daughters." I turned to leave. The crowd parted for me. But before I could take another step, I heard something that stopped me. Wait. It wasn't Rosemary. It was Louise. I turned. She was looking at Rosemary now, not me. "Tell him," Louise said. "Tell him the rest, or I will." Rosemary paled. "Louise, don't." "Tell him," she repeated, voice harder now. My stomach turned. "What is she talking about?" I asked. Louise stepped forward. "She wasn't going to tell you, not now, maybe not ever." I stared at Rosemary, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. "What is it?" Rosemary finally looked up. "I wasn't going to keep her from you." "Rosemary." "I wasn't," she insisted. "But I didn't know if you could handle it." "Handle what?" She swallowed. "She's already been born." The words hit like a truck. "What?" I whispered. "Our daughter," she said, her voice cracking. "She was born last week, early. She's in the NICU." My knees locked. I couldn't breathe. "You had her," I said slowly, trying to stay upright. "And you didn't tell me." "She wasn't due for another 3 weeks," she said, tears streaming now. "And everything was moving so fast with the wedding. I was scared. I didn't know what to do." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing holding back the scream in my throat. So while I was sitting in my apartment, checking my phone every day like an idiot, my daughter was already here, struggling to breathe, alone. "She wasn't alone," Rosemary said. "She had the best care." "Care," I said, stepping closer. "Care doesn't sign birth certificates. Care doesn't hold her at night or sing to her or give her her name." "She doesn't have one yet," she whispered. "What? She doesn't have a name." I couldn't decide. I was waiting. "For what?" I asked. "Me?" She didn't answer. But I already knew. Louise turned to me. "She's in St. Vincent's, ICU, room 14C. I only know because I saw her chart. Rosemary didn't even tell me she gave birth until yesterday." I didn't wait for another word. I walked out of that wedding. Not because I'd won. Not because I'd proved a point. but because somewhere, 5 miles away, was the only person who hadn't betrayed me. And she didn't even know my name yet. St. Vincent smelled antiseptic and hope, an odd mix of fear and miracles. It was the kind of place where you either left with a life in your arms or a hole in your chest. I hadn't set foot in a hospital since my father passed, but walking through those doors now, I didn't feel like a man with trauma, I felt like a man with a mission. Room 14C. That's what Louise said, that's where she was, my daughter. I didn't even know what she looked like yet. I didn't know if she had Rosemary's eyes or my chin or some strange mix that would make her entirely her own. I didn't know if she had hair. I didn't know if she was breathing through a tube or curled under warming lights or crying for someone who hadn't arrived until now. But I would know in seconds. I walked the hallway like a ghost. The nurses didn't stop me. Maybe I looked too calm, too focused, or maybe the truth I carried in my blood gave me the right to pass through without questions. Room 14C was quiet. I paused at the door, hand resting on the frame. Then I saw her. Tiny, so small it didn't feel real. Encased in clear plastic, her chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. Tubes ran from her arm to a monitor. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, but she was moving, just a little. Her fingers curled reflexively, like she was holding onto invisible air. That was my daughter, and she had no idea who I was. I stepped closer and stared through the incubator. There was a chair beside it, a nameboard above it, but the nameboard was blank. No first name, no father listed, just, Baby Langston. I reached out slowly, afraid the glass might shatter under the weight of my regret. "Hi," I whispered, unsure if I was talking to her or myself. "I'm sorry I'm late." She didn't respond, of course, but her foot kicked once, a small jolt, a twitch of life. I wiped my eyes. I hadn't cried at the wedding. I hadn't cried when Rosemary admitted the truth, but here, now, with this fragile little piece of me curled up in wires and light, I broke. Because I should have been there, not John, not anyone else. Me. And she had come into the world with no name, no father beside her, no voice to fight for her. But that ended now. The door creaked behind me. I didn't turn. I knew who it was. Rosemary's reflection filled the glass beside mine. She stood a few feet away, holding her arms like she was hugging guilt. "I didn't want it to happen like this," she said. "That makes two of us." She came early. I wasn't prepared. "You had 9 months," I said, voice flat. "You were more prepared for a wedding that didn't even last than for the birth of your own child." She wasn't supposed to come until next week. And I wasn't supposed to find out I was a father from a lab report. She flinched. "I'm sorry." "No, you're not," I said, finally turning to face her. "You're sorry you lost control. You're sorry your perfect lie cracked in front of a crowd. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry for how public it got." "That's not true." "It is," I said. "You weren't going to tell me about her. You weren't going to list me on the birth certificate. You weren't even going to let me name her." "I didn't know what to name her," she said softly. I looked back at the baby. "She looks like a Clara. Quiet, strong." Rosemary hesitated. "That was on my list." "I know," I said. "You scribbled it down during your second trimester, right under Amelia and above Sage. You had it folded in your planner beside a sonogram picture." She stared at me. "You kept looking at me like I'd forgotten everything," I continued. "But I didn't. You just moved on faster than I could hold it." Silence. "I was scared, Adam," she whispered. "When I realized she was yours, I panicked. I didn't want to come crawling back." "I didn't need you to crawl," I said. "I needed you to call." More silence. She stepped closer to the incubator. "She looks like you," she said. I didn't reply. "She stretches her arms out when she's asleep. The nurses say it's rare, like she's reaching." I said nothing again. "I think she was looking for you," she added. This time, I turned my full weight toward her. "Then why did you make it so hard to be found?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Because I didn't think I deserved forgiveness." "You didn't," I said. She froze. "But she does." Rosemary's breath caught. "I'm not here for you, Rosemary," I said quietly. "I'm not here to fix us or revisit what we had. I'm here for Clara." A long silence passed. "I named her," I said again, firmer. "I'm signing that form. I'm filing for custody, partial, shared. I'm not walking away just because you made walking back impossible. I won't fight you, she whispered. I nodded. Good. Then I turned back to the glass. Clara kicked again, a quiet rebellion. She's going to be strong, I said. She'll have to be. Rosemary stood beside me again. I did love you, Adam, she said. I know, I replied, but loving someone doesn't mean you get to break them. She nodded, slowly, then. You still love me? I stared at Clara, then back at her. And finally, I said, I don't know, but I do love her, and that's enough. Rosemary broke, right there. She collapsed into the chair beside the incubator, hand covering her mouth, sobbing silently. I let her cry. But I didn't comfort her, because I wasn't at her home anymore. She'd torn that down brick by brick, lie by lie. And now, all that was left was a father and his daughter. And that was a beginning I could live with. 3 weeks later, I walked into the same hospital, but this time, I carried a car seat instead of a sealed envelope. Clara was healthy now, no more tubes, no more incubator, just a tiny pink cap, wrinkled fists, and a cry that could split through silence like a blade. The nurse smiled at me as I checked the discharge forms. She's lucky, she said. I looked up. She's got a dad who shows up. I didn't smile back. I was still learning how to do that again, but I nodded once and whispered, yeah, and I'm not leaving again. Outside, Louise stood waiting by my car, arms crossed, watching me with that same quiet strength she'd shown since the day I collapsed on her couch, holding the test results like a broken promise. She opened the back door as I gently placed Clara's seat inside. She's peaceful, Louise said, leaning down. She's my peace, I replied. Then I stood up straight and looked at the building one last time. I wouldn't come back here again, at least, not for anything like this. My daughter was coming home. And so was my revenge. I never said another word to Rosemary, not directly, but my silence said enough. I filed for paternity, not shared custody, full custody. The test results, the medical records, and Louise's sworn affidavit as a witness shredded any argument Rosemary might have made. And in court, I brought more than evidence. I brought a mirror. I stood in front of a judge and told him how Rosemary had planned a wedding while hiding her daughter's existence. How she told another man he was the father. How she let our daughter be born unnamed, untethered from truth. And how she had begged me to act normal while she stood beneath flowers and fairy lights, pretending the past never existed. The courtroom was silent when I finished. Even Rosemary's lawyer didn't argue. The judgment was swift. I would be Clara's legal father. Rosemary would have limited supervised visitation until further notice. She broke down in the hallway afterward, screaming, threatening. I didn't look back, because Clara was in my arms, and the only voice I cared about was hers. But that wasn't the end. Closure isn't always just walking away, sometimes it's letting the world see, and for someone like Rosemary, that was the only wound deep enough. The wedding video had gone viral, thanks to a guest who uploaded the moment I walked down the aisle with the test envelope. It had no music, no edits, no commentary, just real-time betrayal, 30 million views in a week. The caption? She begged him to act normal at her wedding. He brought the truth instead. I didn't upload it, I didn't have to. Truth has its own legs when it's starved for too long. Rosemary tried to shut it down, claimed defamation, issued public statements about deeply personal trauma. But it was too late. John never came back. Her sponsorships ended. Her polished life began to peel, photo by photo, story by story. And me? I didn't comment once. Because when the whole world wants to know your side, silence becomes your sharpest weapon. I spent my days learning how to swaddle a baby, learning her sounds, her expressions, the way her lips twitched when she dreamed. I named her Clara, officially. Clara Elaine Langston. Elaine, my mother's name. Every form, every doctor's note, every insurance file bore it now. She was mine, in name, in legacy, in love, but fate wasn't finished yet. 6 months later, I published an article, just one. It wasn't a rant or a tell-all, It was a thoughtful, first-person reflection on fatherhood, betrayal, and what it means to be chosen last. It was titled, "A Wedding, a Lie, and a Baby I Refuse to Abandon." The last line read, "Though truth wasn't something I had to scream, it was something I had to raise." It hit 3 million reads in 48 hours. Then came the podcast invites, the panel requests, the parenting magazine interviews, and finally, the book deal. The advance wasn't life-changing, but the message was. I wasn't the broken man at the altar anymore. I was the father who walked through the fire. And now, every time Clara laughs, every time she says, "Dada," I know one thing with total certainty. I didn't just bring a paternity test to that wedding. I brought justice. Louise stayed. She never overstepped, never tried to be more than support. But one night, while Clara slept between us on the sofa, I asked her quietly, "Why did you help me?" She looked down at Clara, brushed a lock of hair from her tiny forehead, and said, "Because you never stopped showing up, even when no one else did." Then she added, "And because one day, she'll ask who fought for her, and I want her to know her story didn't begin in betrayal, it began in courage." I didn't say anything, but I held Louise's hand. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, something beautiful could grow from ashes. Rosemary vanished from the public eye. She changed her username, deleted her photos, tried to start fresh in another city. But the internet never forgets, and every time she tried to rebuild, someone would repost the video. The still shot of her face, mid-gasp, holding a crumpled envelope, had become an image etched into digital history. She begged me to act normal. But truth doesn't play dress-up. It comes barefoot, loud, uninvited. And when it arrives, it burns everything that isn't real. That was her ending. Mine. It started the moment my daughter curled her fingers around mine, and I realized, she chose me without knowing the story. She didn't need a name to love me, she just needed me to show up. And I did. Again. And again. And again. Ending. This wasn't a story of revenge, this was the story of a father who refused to be erased, and a child who would never again be hidden.